It's a great honor for the Daily News to be hosting today's awards, New York's hometown newspaper, saluting New York's more than 50,000 transit workers. These workers ensure that nearly 7 million people daily safely get to their destinations over tracks that, if laid end to end, would stretch from New York City to Chicago, and in more buses than any other public agency in North America.
Very proud to present the next award to a true hometown hero, Jihad Abed. This is a man who could have turned away in a difficult situation, could have minded his own business, but instead he stood up for the underdog, broke up a fight on the bus that he was driving. What's most impressive about the MTA isn't the numbers, it's the people behind the wheel of our buses and our trains. These are unsung heroes whose names we don't usually know, whose faces we often don't see, but they are the real engines fueling the MTA. Brave men and women often get up earlier in the morning than a lot of us, work longer than many of us, see their families less than many of us because of long shifts and odd hours. These are all hometown heroes.
It's my privilege to participate in honoring very specifically a young woman who went above and beyond what would normally be expected of her. Last March, Felicia, a subway cleaner, was going about her work at the 18th Street station on the number 1 line when she saw a man drag a woman down 2 flights of stairs and steal her wallet. Without regard for her own safety, she followed the suspect as he bolted from the station. She observed him as he shed his jacket and baseball cap on the street to hide his identity. Felicia continued to shadow the man as he attempted to flee, hoping and praying that a responding police car would appear. Thanks to Felicia's bravery and ingenuity, a violent criminal was brought to justice in this city.
I have the privilege of presenting our next award to Roger Bell. He was actually on his way to work. He was at Broadway Junction near the L train. He heard and saw a commotion and ran toward the trouble. There was a 52-year-old man named Patrick Anderson who had fallen off the platform. By this time, there are police officers on the scene. There's a crowd around, but it was clear to Roger that this was happening on his turf. He was the one who was used to working near the third rail, so he was the one who jumped down to help.
In the midst of chaos, we hope for calm, and that is our next hometown hero, Denise Davis. The day was January 3rd, 2013, and gunfire erupted all around her. An ex-con was approached by cops, and he decided to open fire. It was shot after shot after shot. And the MTA conductor, unlike all of the passengers around her, remained calm. Everyone was frantic, as you can imagine. They were running, they were hiding. And what did she do? No such thing. Instead, she reached out and made sure that everyone was protected, everyone was safe, including a little girl, 3 or 4 years old, she told me. She had on a little purple coat, she had on a little purple backpack, and she stepped in to make sure she was protected, make sure all the people around her were protected, that they were safe, and in the end, they were.
Sal Ambrosino, Michael Watt, Kevin Puma, Stephen Miller, Eric Williams, and Colombo Salimo.
It was during Hurricane Sandy, as they were leaving in a Suburban, as waters were rising. 2 individuals called for help. One woman screaming passionately, "My mother, my mother." They stopped. They helped her. And then they looked, and there was an elderly woman hanging on for dear life to a fire pole, to a fire emergency box. They then secured her safety. And as I was talking to Sal at the table, describing, he said it was apocalyptic, dark, cascades of waters, torrents. We're not talking about floods. We're talking something that you can't imagine. And they remained calm. They took these 3 civilians who owe their lives to these gentlemen today, to the Coney Island Hospital, and then went back to work, where they continued tirelessly and selflessly, 5-6 days, thinking nothing of it. We use the term hero today to describe everything from football players and hero sandwiches to whatever. It has diluted. These men today personify what that means. They should be in the dictionary under the term hero. And it is today that we honor them.
Danny Hay. He was on his way to work in Brooklyn. He knew the F train was on its way. The train was barreling into the station, about to run not one, but 3 people over. And with quick thinking and bravery and all the things that make up all of you incredible transit workers, he saved the day.
Nahalita Lavasur. One morning, she's bringing her train in. She's a conductor on the Staten Island line, and she's bringing her train into the station, and she sees a lone man standing on the platform, weeping. And as opposed to just walking by, she stopped and she asked the man what was wrong. The man was distraught. He felt like he had no purpose in life. He felt like his life was over, and there was no reason for him to continue, and he was going to throw himself in front of a train. But because Nahalita stopped, talked to him literally off the edge, talked to him about his family, his 8-year-old son, all the reasons that he had to live and to stay on the planet. She stopped all the trains. She called the police. She turned off the 3rd rail, thinking quickly everything you needed to do in a situation like that. And because of her quick thinking, her calm, and her compassion, and her willingness to connect as one human being to another, she saved that man's life that day. And he went home to his 8-year-old son.
Johnny Goings, who I had the pleasure of meeting this morning. During Hurricane Sandy, Johnny saved the lives of 3 fellow MTA workers. With the sea coming in over Coney Island Creek, 3 workers became trapped. Johnny Goings paddled for blocks, then commandeered a dump truck and drove through the flood. He rescued a rescuer and saved the lives of his 3 colleagues.
It was 8 o'clock on a Friday night, and the young man, only about 20, suddenly stumbled towards the edge of the subway platform. Face down, motionless, unconscious, lying on the tracks, a 400-ton train heading his way. Little did signal maintainer Frank Durasma know he was about to become a lifesaver. Frank and 4 other signalmen were on their way to fix a faulty piece of equipment near the 65th station in Queens. Their shift ended 5 hours earlier, but because of a snowstorm, they were held over to troubleshoot. A strap hanger stopped Frank and his crew, and he immediately radioed rail control, but he knew it was a race against time. With a co-worker, Frank jumped down onto the tracks to move the guy toward a platform ladder, but he was 5'9" and 200 pounds. Other members of Frank's crew made a second call to the control center. An emergency slowdown directive was broadcast, but the train was still barreling towards the station. Just in time, with the train 300 feet from the platform, Frank and his crew heaved the stricken guy off the tracks to safety.
Mr. Thomas Merrick. So in the summer of 1948, the subway fare was a nickel. That summer, Army veteran Thomas Merrick started his career as a transit worker, a career he continued for more than 6 decades. Merrick retired in August before turning 92. Before he retired, he gave some advice to the youngsters. You should take one day at a time and enjoy your work. It will motivate you to continue working. Enjoy your work. 6 decades, he enjoyed his work.
As I think somebody said before, we don't always hear about the good news. This is a great good news day. Thank you for being here. Thank you.